everyone, and welcome to Failing Forward, the podcast that talks startups and embracing moments of defeat because failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a necessary part of it. Today, we have the founder of PurelyB, a health and wellness platform that brings back our ancestral traditions. Hello and welcome, Jesrina Arshad.
Thank you, Fira. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for being here today. So before we start, maybe just a little bit of background on your side, Jesrina. Let's get to know you better.
Sure.
You've led a gluten-free, plant-based lifestyle for how long now? And when did you start?
Well, the year I started PurelyB, basically, that's what spurred it all. 2015, so 8 years now. But I have to say, I'm not 100% plant-based. I am 100% gluten-free. I go plant-based 80% of the time. And 20% of the time, I'm a bit more like a flexitarian. But I eat like a bit of fish, a little bit of chicken, just like all in moderation. Yeah.
And I was talking to you earlier and you mentioned that before this you were really into red meat and now...
Yeah.
Oh, how did that transition go?
So basically the transition of understanding that my diet that I had been consuming was actually really harmful to my body was when I did some allergy tests. So I, on a regular basis, every week, I would get migraines every 2 days, like pounding headaches. I would break out in rashes every week. And I had very bad digestive issues. And I think it was all linked as to why I had migraines, and I felt nauseous all the time and really bad and low energy levels. And this was my weekly sort of symptoms. And I thought this was normal. And it was only when I did an allergy test, I found out that I had developed intolerances and allergies to gluten, dairy, egg, wheat, and shellfish. And I wasn't born with any of these allergies. But it had developed over time because my diet and my lifestyle was toxic. And it made me really retrace my steps in terms of like, how is what I'm consuming toxic? Because I'm not eating McDonald's and fast foods every day. But then actually, I don't actually really know what I'm putting into my body because a lot of the foods I'm consuming, I'm not reading the label. I'm not understanding what goes into certain recipes and things like that. And I realized a lot of it was highly processed. And knowing that a lot dairy is highly processed, eating a lot of processed foods in that way, it was a lot of chemicals and toxins in my body. My body particularly did not react well to it. Everyone's different, and mine didn't. And as a result, all these allergy symptoms, and hence why my digestive system, my gut health was so bad, and I started getting all these migraines and so on. So the allergy test opened that up and made me realize that, and I had to start cutting everything out so my body could heal. But that was what started it all. And when I did the process of elimination, I went more plant-based. I understood how plants are highly nutritious and can be the source of protein and a lot of vitamins and minerals in a way that meat can't. And it doesn't bring the nasties that meat brings with it. So when I was able to understand more of that, it took about a month of education and learning. And I made those changes within 1 week of going fully plant-based, natural ingredients only. I knew every single thing that went into my meals and I could pronounce it and it's all natural. Within that 1 week, all of my symptoms cleared up. So my digestion was regular and it was crazy bad before. So it was like regular in that 1 week. My rashes cleared up, no rashes that week. My migraines cleared and my energy was at all-time high. And when you feel that way, after on a weekly basis of having headaches, nausea, bad digestion, and all of that is life-changing. And you never want to go back. So after that,
born into the...
Exactly. And I'm like, I don't eat meat. I would rather feel this way than have a good piece of meat. Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, I'm happy to sacrifice this. So yeah, it really changed the way I looked at things. And I enjoyed it.
It's how you started PurelyB as well.
Yeah. It basically made me realize that nobody was advocating this.
So way before you became an entrepreneur yourself, what was the one thing that you wished you could have turned back time and not do that?
Don't think there's anything that, with hindsight, I would say I wish I didn't do that. However, I guess if you're thinking maybe one of the early memories of what felt disappointing, maybe, for me was when I wanted to start my career in digital marketing. So I studied multimedia technology and design in the UK. And I was very passionate about joining a digital creative agency and everything. And I wanted to join some digital agencies that I had found that I liked in the UK, in London. And I didn't get any of the jobs. Like, I interviewed for a lot, and there were some where I was close. I was like between me and another person, but they would need a visa to hire me. And so they would always end up hiring a local. And I think for me, it made sense why I was meant to come back to Malaysia. I started my career here and not there. And there was a reason for it all. And starting my career here, joining a digital agency here, the network that I built here helped me launch PurelyB in the end. So everything actually happens for a reason and led. Yeah, but yeah, it's hard for me to pinpoint something that I just wish never happened at all. Okay. Yeah.
And before this in 2015, plant-based, it was something very new on the market.
Yeah.
But today itself, you can find anything in the supermarket.
Yeah.
Lactose-free and all that.
Yeah, almond milk, pea milk and all that. Yeah.
So how was it? How was the struggle like educating people in the market about it?
Interestingly, when I started thinking about educating the market, it was just because of my own personal experience. I felt so passionate about sharing the knowledge. I don't think I even thought for a second that it's going to be so foreign to so many people that they're not going to be receptive to it. I don't think that was even something I factored in because I was just so passionate about I need to share this. I can't believe I didn't know any of this. It made such a huge difference in my life. But interestingly, when we did it, because it wasn't just about plant-based. When we did it, it was about natural life, natural health, and not necessarily just going to the pharmacy immediately, getting drugs over the counter whenever you feel ill, and the preventative way of preventing diseases and falling sick and the kind of diet and lifestyle we need to be looking at. I think because of that, it didn't make it seem like we're only advocating plant-based or veganism or anything like that. So because of that, I think a lot of people are very responsive. In fact, it was beyond our expectations, which is why I didn't quit my job until after we launched because of the response. And I realized, oh my God, this is so far beyond. We got 10,000 users within the first 3 weeks of zero advertising. And it just made me realize that Malaysians and Southeast Asians want this. They want the help. They just lack the education, the awareness, the guidance. And I'm so glad that we launched this because it seems we got a lot of people who even wrote to us and they were saying, thank you. They said, thank you for creating this. So if you give them the right tools and the guidance, they will do it. And then you can see how their life really improves. So yeah, it's been quite enlightening in those ways, seeing the plant-based community.
And most of the ingredients that you use now are mostly natural?
Yes, they're all natural. It's not mostly, it's 100% natural. And pagaga and tiger milk mushroom. And we also have pagaga cookies. And we also have pagaga oil, which is for calming the body, stretch marks, scars, and things like that. So everything is always 100% natural, which is also why if you compare our product to, let's say, other superfood supplement brands, they probably dissolve so easily into the water. It's because there's a lot of other preservatives and chemicals, all that in there. But ours is so natural that you have to stir it quite a lot for it to dissolve well. And even then you'll have a little bit of the texture because it's as natural as it gets. But that was the best way for us to really preserve the potency and the efficacy in the most optimal way, the way our ancestors used to consume it. All of the ingredients, the key ingredients that we have, are originally found in the Malaysian rainforest. That's very much the angle and the focus that we like to take because we want to see where is the gap in the market. And we have so much to offer in terms of the wellness benefits and the rich heritage and culture from our Malaysian heritage, our Malaysian rainforest, but not enough awareness. So 1 canister of our pagaga by PurelyB has 6 kilograms of fresh pagaga. It's a lot of pagaga. Yeah. And in order to really get the medicinal properties, you need to consume a certain volume. And that's why we're very specific in terms of saying 2 scoops a day, every day. And then lastly, the combination of ingredients. In our pagaga by PurelyB, you have pagaga, turmeric leaf, papaya leaf, habatusada, green apples, and dates. Individually, each of these ingredients are very powerful. But together, even more powerful. So it brings out the efficacy even stronger in each other because of this combination. But as you know, with all these traditional herbs, you can't just combine any ingredients together. Sometimes it can be more harmful for you. It can be quite detrimental to your health to just combine two powerful ingredients. But this is an ancient recipe and remedy passed down through a sacred lineage of healers and herbalists who had the gift to know which herbs should be combined and have been treating a lot of women, children, and men with this remedy. So this has got decades of testimonials and proof on how it works. And we've just fine-tuned that further working with the healer, herbalists, and medical scientists. So
there's always people aspiring entrepreneurs out there who they know there's a problem, but they don't know where to start.
Yes.
So how did you came up with, the whole research, and how do you find when to start?
Okay, so when I started, initially when I did all the research, it wasn't to start a company, right? I did all the research because of my own health curiosity and wanting to figure out how can I cut out gluten, dairy, egg, wheat, shellfish, how are people in the West doing it because they're writing books about it. There's some icons that I'm looking at too. They overcame like cancer and chronic diseases, going plant-based and all that. So learning from them and then figuring out how to incorporate it into my Malaysian diet and culture and so on was more out of just my own personal wants, right? And then after doing that, after experiencing the benefits of that within just 1 week, that just like was a crazy epiphany moment for me. Like I had gone to like hospitals, I'd done colonoscopy and you name it, I've done it and nothing worked. Can you imagine all I needed to do was that? Change my diet. So it really was like shock for me. And so it made me so passionate to want to create PurelyB. And because I realized I'm not a health expert. I don't have the credibility to talk about these things aside from my own personal experience. And I cannot build a business around this by myself. But I know the need for it because I'm the target audience. If this can benefit someone like me, it's worthwhile doing. And so then I went on the hunt to find others who will believe in the same vision and mission, but they are the experts. Natural health doctors, nutritionists, medical scientists, who share the same sort of passion that I do. And I was just very lucky because my elder sister is a naturopath. So she's a natural health practitioner, graduated from Australia, and there's very few of them that are certified of certain level, and she was one of them. And she introduced me to quite a few of them who then became my business partners. And it was just through who you know, like connection to connection. And I believe that if your mission is authentic, you will meet the right people along the way or connect with the right people along the way who are meant to do it with you. And that's what happened. It happened really fast because January, February is when I experienced the changes. And then I met my business partners, my co-founders who all wanted to do it together with me, all put money into the business. Some of them we met for the first time. We didn't know each other before this. And then March, we set up the company, and May, we launched. So it moved really, really fast. But I believe it's because one is that when you're so dedicated and you know that you want towards a goal, it's about just you're so laser focused that you can just hit the point really fast. Nothing will get in your way. But secondly is there was 7 of us, including myself. There was 6 of the other co-founders. We all pulled our weight. When you had 7 people pulling their weight, you can get things done very, very fast. It didn't matter. Some of them were a doctor when they didn't care. They would be uploading things onto the website. It was like, we really were like a family in how we did that. Not sleeping at all. And so launching it in March, we didn't have much money. I actually sold. So I also was lucky that I had assets. So I had property and I sold the property to be able to then build PurelyB, because the only thing we didn't have was a tech founder. If I had that, I wouldn't need so much money. Everyone kind of just sweat equity, right? But we needed that for building the company and whatnot. Oh, we had $0 for marketing. So everything was word of mouth. Everything was referrals. But when you have 7 passionate co-founders, you can do that with social media. And that's how we gained 10,000 users within 3 weeks, just through word of mouth. And then PR started picking up, like Balkan Post wrote about us, like these 7 Malaysian women are helping Malaysians live a healthier lifestyle through a one-stop portal. And then different, like even another podcast, a radio station said, we want to interview you ladies. So what I felt was because we were a first mover in what we were doing, it also then created all this opportunity. We stood out because some people were like, what are they doing? Because they're like, what is this plant-based, blah, blah, blah. But others were fascinated because it resonated. Let's say they had certain health issues, or that they have children, and it really clicks. A lot of mothers really resonate with what we're doing because they're more health conscious when they have kids and they want to look out for all these things. So I feel that it was a mixture of having the right team, the right time. Timing is everything. And we were really on the cusp. I think juices, cold pressed juices and stuff were just launching that time. So it was just that early era in K-Fit. Do you remember K-Fit? They had just launched. So I feel like timing really played a role there too. People were curious and wanting to be more healthy, but they didn't really understand much about it. And we stood out in how we were approaching it. And then at the same time, we were very all about Malaysian cultures and lifestyles, which nobody was doing. So all of that played a role. And then when we needed to scale, I had quit my job. I actually had money on the side. I created consultancy for because I'm a digital marketer. That is what I've known all my life. And I have built quite a good network and whatnot. So there were certain brands that wanted to work with me. And so I knew that we weren't monetizing. My whole plan was build a brand that just wants to help people, not make money off them, not right at the start, right? And so how are you going to survive? You quit your job. How are you going to sustain and continue building this up if you're not monetizing yet? So I already planned everything prior. So when I quit my job, I set up my consultancy where I then started just helping businesses do digital marketing and whatnot. And I was lucky that I got one big client, and that one big client helped pay salaries for me and my co-founder for a good 8 months, 9 months. And we didn't need to do anything else. And then we managed to raise seed funding from 500 startups like 6 months later. So everything sort of just happened to roll into place. But I also planned it beforehand, knowing if we're not going to make money, how are we going to survive? I don't want to run this business with a mindset about worrying that we're running out of money, we need to shut down, right? Like, that's no way to run the business. And so I needed to take care of that prior. So that all played a role.
And entrepreneurship is not a norm in Malaysia itself. How do you convince your parents? So how do they react?
So my mom passed away of cancer quite a long time ago, which has also played a role into me wanting to go more natural and so on. But my father is as traditional as it gets. So he used to be in PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he's like a chartered accountant, And so he was worried. He was so worried for me. Yeah, I remember he would be like talking to his friends. It's like, all she's doing is just, she quit her job and she's carrying her laptop everywhere. I don't know what she's doing. Like, he was so worried for me. It was so cute. But I think once he was able to see us, I think especially when we raised funds, because it was from a reputable venture capitalist, that he was able to understand more. Because even before that, if we were getting like 100,000 monthly unique users and so on, that means nothing to my father. Like, that's traffic. Like, what does that mean? It's like dollars mean like, but we weren't monetizing yet. So if you're not monetizing yet, like, he's like, how is this a business, right? So I think him just watching me and learning how I was doing things, and then able to see how certain VCs or even people that he knew, his peers who were starting to be more in the startup world, able to like advocate what we were doing and give their stamp of approval. I think it gave my dad peace of mind and ease. But my dad has been my biggest supporter. As much as he was worried, he didn't also question. He was worried, concerned as a father, but he never stopped me. He encouraged whatever I wanted to do, he will support. But he's just going to worry on the side for me. So that was, yeah. And then till today, like, my dad could not have done it without my father, yeah.
So you mentioned you got your first investment from 500 Global itself.
Yeah.
How was that journey like? Was it tough? How many investors did you have to speak to before getting that investment itself?
So when we launched PurelyB and we were raising funding, we were actually, I don't know what we would call it, that startup boom period, right? Like, suddenly the first wave of startups in Malaysia was such a trendy thing and whatnot. So I think it was easiest for us first batch to gain funding in the first year. I'm not saying it was easy. It definitely wasn't easy, but I feel that it could have been a lot harder should it have become 3-4 years later when the novelty kind of wore off, sort of thing. But also we worked so hard for it. I got accepted into the Magic Stanford program. So we went to Stanford for 2 weeks because I don't come from a finance background. I had no clue what is seed, Series A, blah, blah, blah. Didn't know all that terminology. And I learned it in the crash course in Stanford for 2 weeks when we went to Silicon Valley. And from there, I realized from the mentors and the professors, they said, you need to start raising funds. They're like, because we could have bootstrapped it further if we wanted. But they said, you've got good momentum. You have a business that also has potential in the US, which is very encouraging to see. They're like, oh, this could also do well in the US, not just from Malaysia. They said, but you have to raise funds so you can then amplify the momentum, because otherwise it's going to go stagnant. And then that's when you lose, interest and things like that. And so immediately when I got back from the Stanford University trip, we raised funds. And how do we do that? Prior to that, we actually went to Rise, so the biggest startup conference at the time in Hong Kong, and we showcased at the booth with a big TV screen. Amazing, amazing response. And I think it also helped that we were women. We were like one group out of, tiny 0.5% out of the entire audience. So you imagine like a sea of booth and barely any women. We're like 4 women co-founders in front of the booth. We already stood out, right? So people were like, what are they doing? What is their business and whatnot? So we're getting a lot of people to our booth. A lot of them were potential investors. And people were asking us, are you raising funds? And we said no. At that time, I was not even considering. I didn't know how to go about it. But I got their business cards. And they were like, when you are interested, get in touch with us. And so got all the cards, went to Stanford the following month, came back, connected with every single one of those investors and said, we're raising funds. Because during the Stanford program, did my pitch deck, learned how to pitch and all of that. So it helped a lot.
But along your journey itself, do you have any problems in terms of convincing people who just don't get it?
Of course.
And how do you able?
Yeah. So I feel if they don't get it, they will not get it. For some people, don't waste your breath and your effort. So that's a difference. I think there's some people who may not get it, and then you talk to them. So you can see that they're open and they're reasonable, logical, and so on, and they will get it and they'll be open to it. Those people, you spend the time and you invest the time into talking to them, convincing them, or getting them to experience it and see it over time. But then there were others that I met who are just completely closed off. So it's like, nope, this is the way I think. I'm not open to any other sort of perspective. And I just don't think you're going to succeed. I don't think this is going to work, and so on, right? Those ones, you just don't take it personally. I think anything I learned is just like, it's not about you, right? Just, it's not for them. There's some investors where you're just not their cup of tea, what you're building, and that's okay. There's no such thing as one business being for everybody, especially at an early stage. Unless you're just a moneymaker business later on, then yes, everybody wants to invest in that. But if you're talking about just based on concept and what you're doing, no. There's some that's going to resonate, some it's not. Move on. Then that's fine. Accept it. That's fine. You made a good connection. Now you move on and you move to somebody else. So that's what I learned over the time. Is just don't take it personally. It's so easy to, and it can make you feel so discouraged and disheartened and demotivated. But then it shouldn't, because on the other hand, you've got all these other people who do believe in you. So why are you letting one negative person who does not share the same vision, mission, or not on the same wavelength as you, like unravel all the goodness of it, right?
So throughout your entrepreneur journey, maybe share what's your biggest blunder?
Biggest blunder. There's quite a few blunders. I think one of the biggest ones, and happened early on, was overhiring and bad hiring decisions. And the thing is, when you're young, and I feel that when we started the company, people associate when you get money, when you get the capital, you build your team, you expand your team, and the bigger your team is, how big is your team now? That's always the question. It's like, it's almost, because you guys are doing so well, how big is your team now? It's like associated, right? Success and the size of your team. So when you're just starting out for some entrepreneur, that's also the mindset. And so when we got funding for the first time, I finally was able to hire. We weren't just co-founders. We were able to hire staff and went a bit overboard. And we definitely hired for roles that weren't necessities. They were nice to have. And at that time, we hadn't yet tested our business model. So for the first 1 year, we were focused on not making money. We were focused on just helping people, empower them with education and guidance. And then after 1 year, once we've built a reputable brand, where these brands are approaching us and saying, how can we work with you and so on, then we launch a marketplace. So the idea was a marketplace where we build an ecosystem where we uplift a lot of especially local brands that have amazing, good quality, natural, healthy products, but don't have the community and visibility the way we do. So being on our platform is really going to help them. And it's really going to help customers connect and discover brands with the stamp of approval from PurelyB's experts. So that was really our goal. But we hadn't tested it out. It was our plan for the last 1 year. And I had hired I had pretty much a team of 20 people, and I had a chief technology officer who used to be the tech lead at one of the biggest telcos in India, who moved to join us. So we had like the creme de la creme, right? And without having a business model proven. So it was all based, we could only pay them through the funding. And we hadn't yet generated steady monthly revenue and income, but I already had that team. But we had good traffic. We had good engagement, we had good traffic, we had a very strong community, great, but that wasn't bringing the money, right? So that actually did really affect us in the first year after getting funding, because we were burning so much money through just talents alone and building the marketplace and testing out the marketplace. And as you know, looking at Lazada and all that, marketplaces are crazy expensive to operate and run, which I didn't know. I had never run a marketplace before. I'm a digital marketer, content creator, content business in Astro. That I knew. I didn't know a marketplace. So not knowing all that, having so much headcount for people who weren't necessarily needed at the time to really make the marketplace a success, definitely, to me, affected our runway, affected the business, affected mental health. It was the most stressful year of running PurelyB. That was 2016. And as a result, even the environment was toxic. You had a few bad apples and you make some bad hiring decisions. And so it affected the culture. But it wasn't just because I had a few bad apples that kind of influenced the rest of some of the team, because they're very young. I had a very young team. But at the same time, when I had suddenly investors, venture capitalists and angel investors, now with the pressure to hit certain targets and grow, I couldn't just focus on culture and nurturing the team anymore either, which I used to do. And I had to then focus on making stakeholders happy and grow, scale the business, grow the business. And I was so new to become an entrepreneur, I didn't know how to juggle the two. So it was a struggle, trying to figure out how to manage the talents, how to make everyone happy, make sure that the culture is still retained, the way we built the company, that whole family culture and all that, but also keep investors happy and make sure the company is scaling well and that our runway is okay and so on, and we can build a sustainable, profitable business model, which we hadn't yet at the time. So all of that was happening in 2016. And it was a very, very steep learning curve on how to maneuver through all of it. And that was also the time when I was not able to take care of my health. So in the first year, I was so good. I mean, like the first, before we had raised funds and all that, whatever I was preaching, I was doing it. And I was like feeling my best ever. Like I didn't need much sleep and all that. But then once got the funding, tried to build marketplace, had the big team, had to manage all of that, and all these issues started coming up, there was no time to even think about taking care of myself and my health. And that was when I actually developed, what was the term? Was it atopic eczema or something like that? And like all my hands and my feet had like blister red marks and whatnot, right? I couldn't even walk. Like it was painful to walk. Never happened to me in my life. Like, yes, I would break out in rashes and eczema here and there, but not to that degree. It never happened. And then obviously it was a wake-up call. I had to, in that first week, just clear out my schedule and just focus on myself. And I knew that stress was a big factor. I went for acupuncture. I went to these natural doctors and on. They said stress. They said number one is stress. And I'm like, yes, I know. And then I had to go more plant-based again because I was pretty bad with my plant-based diet at the time, because when you're like just so busy, I was like, I don't have time. Like, just eat whatever. Right? And as a result, this is what happened. So I just cut out. I went completely plant-based. I was eating all these nutritious foods. Like, I was having burdock root soup, which is like full of antioxidants and things like that. And within 3 days, and I was listening to all these meditation music and guided meditation podcasts and all that. Within 3 days, it cleared up, which is crazy because normally it takes a long time for those to clear up. And I even documented, and within 1 week, it was completely clear because finally I was taking care of myself. And because maybe I was healthy prior, maybe that's why it didn't take too long for me to get, as long as I went back on track. But that really was a big wake-up call to me to put my priorities straight. You can't do everything. So you got to pick your battles. What is going to be most important to you? And you work on that. Right now, you're trying to do too much all one shot. And that's also at the time when we shut down Marketplace. So a lot of people were like, so much money, so much time invested into building the Marketplace. What are people going to think? Oh, PurelyB shut down Marketplace, they're a failure, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, you cut your losses, right? Like, if you continue doing that, what's going to happen? The company will probably shut down. I have investors who believe in me and believe in us and believe in my decision-making, like what I feel will be best for the business. And this is what I feel in my gut. Marketplace is not right for us. So I knew what we needed to do. We needed to focus on building the community, the education aspect of the brand even stronger. We're still young and we still got a lot more to build there. And then eventually launch your own brand of products, because that's what people are wanting from us. But you launch something where there's a gap in the market. Don't try to do what everyone else is doing. See where there really is a need. Nobody's really doing it in the right way, and you can. So that's what we need to do. And so that was the whole process. Going through all of that was painful, all together in one shot, but it brought us to where we are today. And we needed to go through that. So if you ask me, would you change it? I wouldn't, even though I wouldn't want to go through it again. But we had to go through that. There's no way I would have gotten all these learnings otherwise. And today we have a team of 5 people.
And how did you kind of boost the morale up, even though people were leaving and you had to lay off people?
So the good thing about when you change the business model is that people understand their role is kind of obsolete, right? And their skill sets and whatnot may not fit. For example, even our CTO, when we changed the business model, as a CTO, you want a certain scope that you can manage. And when you see that a lot of that is taken away, are you going to be happy in this role? No. So it actually became quite good in a way where it was very mutual. But a lot of them also realized that for them to be able to thrive and do what they want to do, maybe this is not for them either, with how we were changing as a business. And of course, there were people we had to lay off where it was very emotional and all that. But, you know, you have to do what you have to do. But I always made sure everyone was okay. We're always trying to make sure that they have a job lined up. I'll do everything in my power to help make sure that they're all right. But for the most part, I feel that a lot of it was like mutual. So it was good, and remain in good relations with all my ex-staff till today. Yeah. So to me, that's the most important thing, is never burn bridges, whether it's me and them or whatnot. Like, it will always, like, relationships is the most important thing you can build throughout your entire career. It doesn't matter what, whether you're an employee, whether you're an entrepreneur, like, that is the most important thing.
So being a marketer yourself, what do you think was your biggest failure in marketing?
In marketing as a whole, when you have too much budget to work with, you may not be coming out with the most optimal ways of generating ROI. So I think there have been certain times in the past when I had a bigger budget where I probably did not come up with the best use of budget that I could. Not saying that the campaign didn't generate ROI, I didn't do well in delivering certain targets, but was it really the best that it could be? I don't think it was, because now that I have been running PurelyB, where we don't have much marketing budget, and actually during the time when we launched Pagaga, we had no marketing budget because by the time we launched that, any money we had raised had already been depleted because it was for other business models that didn't work out, that failed. And then the business model that did work, by the time we had that, we had no money, that I had no choice but to figure out how to drive sales. So this in the most creative marketing ways where you have like 1,000 ringgit maybe in a month to drive marketing for it, right? But that resulted in my best work. So I knew in the past, like I really didn't push the budget as well as I could. But I think that only comes with learnings later on. At the time, you probably think this is the best that you can do.
I think that's the dilemma that a lot of startups have. Like, they don't have enough marketing budget, but they want it to be big. Like, they want the campaigns to be huge and viral.
Yes, yeah.
So the only way is to make it as creative as possible.
Exactly. But that actually benefits us the most, right? Because once we do that, we're actually able to really test what works well before you scale the marketing budget. And when you scale the marketing budget, you get bang for your buck. That's when you really drive the ROI, right? But if you didn't have that struggle to begin with, you would be making some of them not best decisions or optimal decisions for your marketing.
What are some of the things that maybe caught you off guard? Be it like funding, marketing, investing.
Because I don't come from a finance background, I think and I didn't really have like a CFO or anyone. I mean, I had those advisors and whatnot. I think just caught me off guard was like how fast you can go with the money. So let's say when you raise funds in the beginning, and now obviously we're much more experienced. I have a CFO and all that. It's a completely different ballgame today. But in the beginning, when we raised our seed funding, 2 million ringgit is a lot of money. Didn't realize how fast you would burn through it. Hence why the wrong hiring decisions and all of that. But even just marketing, development, all of that, like really did not make the best decisions in the beginning because I didn't plan out the finances, the financial plan as well as I could have. But that was because of lack of experience, lack of knowledge, and so on. And that came with time. They knew that we weren't quite there yet, but they believed in our ability to be able to get there. And we just needed the support to be able to. So that gave us that additional push to be able to then continue and grow the company more, test out another business model. And then I did equity crowdfunding. So when you hit the roadblock where I was like, okay, we're really running out of money, and it's not a good time for venture capitalist investors to invest in a company like ours. Like, unless we can prove X amount of revenue and all that, which we can't because we haven't quite found the sweet spot for our monetization channel. But we have built an amazing community. So take it to them, as them to invest in us, right? So that's when we did equity crowdfunding and we managed to raise, I think it was 2 million ringgit in 3 months. It was a very, very difficult process. Like, it is not for everyone. Everyone thinks equity crowdfunding, oh, you can just get money like that. It was harder than raising from venture capitalists. And you don't sleep and all of that. But of course, it was worth it getting that money, but it was really tough. But just getting that money afterwards, like, then made a big difference for us. Not long after then, we launched our products and all that. But I think what always caught me off guard prior to that in the beginning stage, the first few years, was just financial management.
Thank you so much, Jesrina, for sharing your personal story with us today.
No problem.
So how do our listeners learn more about PurelyB or get in touch with you?
So, I mean, we're very active on our social media and our Instagram. So you can just DM us on PurelyB or DM me on my personal account, Jesrina Arshad. And I'm just like happy customers reach out to me all the time. And I'm happy to just like
keep in contact.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So we'll make sure to include all those in the links in the episode description as well. Thank you all for tuning in for this episode with Jesrina. And remember, guys, you got to keep it moving and failing forward.
Don't forget to subscribe.